Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Ashok. I am part of product management team working in Lumira. So before we start, quick legal disclaimer, right? Many of the stuff what we show today would be in terms of forward-looking statements. So on those cases, as you know, that development plans might change. So just a small caution before we get into the details. Right. So today I have following items in my agenda. One, in terms of introduction to big data world, and then I'll also cover about SAP analytics and big data overall solutions, what we have, and look at the different challenges what big data brings in and how we can handle that with SAP Lumira. And also would like to introduce about SAP HANA VORA, the power of HANA VORA, and use how to use SAP Lumira, this is kind of few innovation which is running, and I want to give a few ideas about what we are working on. Also share about different variety of data, how we can handle with SAP Lumira. We'll also go through high level roadmap and then followed by a question and answer. Right. Okay. As you know that big data is growing, right? It's very clear that it's growing very fast, and everyone will agree with me that it's kind of growing every year more than 50x kind of stuff, right? And there's a few statistics that gives us more information about how the big data field is growing, right? And if you look at another statistics, it's kind of Forrester is kind of saying that only 12% of data is what corporates are kind of making use of it. So there is a huge potential available in terms of unlocking the existing the data what they are storing and finding more insights in the data. And also the big data field is kind of growing to 50 billion by 2019, so on. Right? And just to give another perspective about data, right? And as you know, the Internet of Things is kind of generating more data every day, right? And it is expected to have kind of 50 billion devices connected by 2020. So think about the enormous amount of data that's getting generated. And if you look at, when we look at why big data is getting more popular nowadays, like we could kind of say the two main reasons. One is cost effectiveness and extensibility, right? So in big data world, mainly in Hadoop, where you could use commodity hardware to save your data, to hold your data, right? And then you have a capability to kind of extend the hardware, add hardware as you grow. Right, it's a very, very main point in terms of having, as you grow, you kind of add hardware and increase your storage. Next, the main stuff in terms of flexibility, right? So before, if you look at classic database systems where you kind of define a schema and start pumping in the data to the schema, right? So where you should know what is that you are kind of storing it, and then you kind of define what is getting stored, right? So here it's like you need not worry about those defining the schema much in advance, and you need not worry about what you're going to do with the data much in advance. So you could just store the data as it comes, and then you could look at the later point of time what you want to do with the data. That way it brings a huge flexibility in terms of for you to store the data as and when you get from the different variety of sources, right? And also we see that companies define and start using a different strategies for their data management, right? So in terms of stuff, there is something called the data lake concept, where organizations kind of fetch the data, get the data from the different sources. It could be a web block, it could be an ERP system, OLAP system, and kind of take the data and put it inside the data lakes, right? And then at this point, they don't get into details in terms of what they are planning to do with the data. Just they're using the data lakes, that is nothing but Hadoop kind of infrastructure to store the data as it comes. Right? And then they look at the key use cases, what they want to make use of it, and extract the required information from the data lakes and put it in the data warehousing schemas and start looking at visualizations in the BI tools and start finding the insights. So for the analytics tools like Lumira, right, it's a challenge that it has to go and tap to the any place where the data lies. But in this case, where a huge amount of data lies in the data lake, it's necessary for tools like Lumira to get into the data lake and start finding the insights in the data. Right. So before getting into the Lumira, I would like to give an overview about different business objects, business intelligence tools, what we have and how do we handle big data across our suite. Right. As you know, we have an enterprise, rock solid enterprise business intelligence platform, and which is used for a lot of operational reporting and management. It's a complete platform by itself, right? And then you have new generation agile visualization tools like Lumira, which helps you to connect to the different sources, prepare your data, massage your data, manipulate your data, and then you kind of build the visualizations what you need and tell in terms of storyboards and so on, right? Also, we have advanced analytics tools which basically addresses the predictive analytics use cases and powered by HANA and all different sources what can connect to, right? But in terms of big data, each and every tool can kind of connect and fetch the data. In terms of enterprise, all the tools could connect to underlying universes and which could connect to the big data connectivities, and tools could start fetching the data via the universes. But in terms of Lumira, we brought in the capabilities where you could connect to big data, interact with the big data and with the different challenges of what big data brings and start finding the insights. So I will talk more about that in coming slides. If you look at from the predictive analytics, as you see that more data you have more advantages in terms of building the better model, right? So the model gets more matured if you throw more data to the models and you build a better model, and that brings a different challenges of building the model. Okay, so you cannot pull in all the data to the predictive analytics tool and start building the model. So in this case, what we have done is we kind of use the tool and to help to authorize building the model, and the process of building the model gets dedicated and processed in the Hadoop environment itself. This is something which we are working on, which will come in the future release. Right? So at this time, I would like to introduce both the product and the positioning of both SAP Lumira and predictive analytics. If you look at self-service use case, we need to bring in the self-service use case for the different variety of users. Right from business user to data analyst and data scientist, everybody needs a capability to connect to big data and find their own insights and try for their own use cases. Everyone does at a different level, right? But if you look at business users and data analysts, you cannot expect them to start writing the code, right? And they need not write a MapReduce program kind of things to find the insights from the big data which is lying underneath, right? So Lumira Lumira tool, what we do is like Lumira helps the business users and data analysts to kind of connect to underlying big data source and find more insights by interacting like any other data source what you do, right? I'll demonstrate in the coming up slides and how you could do all those things with Lumira. And in case of predictive analytics, it's mainly addresses the why it's happening kind of a workflow for more data analyst and data scientist use cases. We often get questions like Hadoop and HANA, right? So when to use what? So in this case, like I would say that both are complementary, right? So one brings the power of running the queries at very high speed, and it's a platform by itself where you could run complex programs within the HANA, right? And where you could use it for the known use cases, where you could start bringing the self-service to the broad range of users, right? And in another case, Hadoop brings other possibilities where you could store a lot of data, and you have a support of concept of data lakes and investigate more deeper in a lot of other data which you feel you could start investigating those and find the deeper insights in the available data what you have, right? And we'll talk more about how you could make both Hadoop and HANA works together in your environment in coming slides. right? So this point, let's get into the Lumira, right? So one of the main challenges what big data brings is the size and speed challenge, right? And if you look at Hadoop, it is true to its logo, right? It brings a challenge of volume and velocity of the data, what it brings compared to the all relational other data sources. For end user to analyze, he need not worry that it is interacting with the big data, right? We should be, the tools like Lumira should be able to bring in the capabilities where users could interact either small data or big data and kind of find the insights without writing any scripts. So the big challenge is how we can bring the self-service to Hadoop environment for end users, right? So I'd like to introduce the workflow, what we are doing, and so how you could manage this large amount of data and have a finite insight with self-service tool like Lumira, right? So one aspect is that, okay, when you from Lumira, what you could do is you could connect to the underlying Hadoop sources. It could be multiple distributions of Hadoop. I will cover in more details in the next slides. And then once you connect to the underlying sources, you could start sampling the data, right? And the sample kind of represents your entire population. And you could start finding the insights from the sample data. Okay, and once you find an insight from the sample data, at this stage you could, if you want to do the data manipulation and fixing the data, many cases what happens, the data may not be in a proper shape. You may want to cleanse the data before you find any more insights, joining two columns, splitting the data and finding the missing values formatting the data in the right stack, renaming and all those stuff, right? So you could do that on the sample. Once you do that and find insights from the sample, you could dedicate the execution back to Hadoop. At this stage, we don't pull in all the data for executions. What we do is we pull the process underneath Hadoop environment and everything executes as a Uzi's job, Uzi's scheduler within Hadoop, which you could use it for, that scheduler is going to analyze the results, what you have analyzed, the sample to the entire populations of the data. Right? Once you have the results, you could start visualizing, getting back to Lumira, and you have another option also, like you could publish the visualizations to Lumira server for Teams and server for BI platforms. And also you have the capability where you could start building the virtual tables within Lumira, within Hadoop, with the help of Lumira executions, and you could Hadoop tables that you could map it to SAP HANA, right, as a virtual table. And in HANA, you have something called Smart Data Access, which will take care of the hard data, cold data kind of concept. And then you could use any of the analytical tools to connect to SAP HANA. You could use Lumira as well and start doing the real-time analytics with the data. Right. So with this, I'll quickly do a demo, which to demonstrate the capabilities of how you could handle the large amount of data with SAP Lumira. Right. So, okay, you could create a new document. So this is a place where you have all the connectors which has been defined, right, from Excel, CSV, even from the clipboard, HANA and Universe, Freehand SQL and all those things. There are multiple ways you could connect to the data. First, I'll just get into query with SQL. This is the place where you'll be able to find all the connectivities, relational, OLAP, big data, and all the sources. And you could select the required connectivity, what you want to do, whether it's Amazon EMR, Redshift, or Hadoop High, or Spark. You could just next and then start entering your credentials and fire your query and fetch your data, right? This is one way. In this case, you need to build your query manually, typing the query, and then you need to be more careful in terms of amount of data that we are pulling, right? Next, you have another option like connecting to Hadoop HDFS. As you know, the HDFS is a file system in the Hadoop environment, and you could directly connect to the Hadoop file system files and start fetching the data from the files by analyzing and splitting the record within, looking at the text files which is stored in HDFS and start getting the data directly from the HDFS. Even in this case, you could start doing a sampling use case. For the demo, I'll just show you the another option. What we have is SQL to Hadoop, right? So this is a place where you could connect to the different database drivers what we have currently, right? You could connect to the Hive, or you connect to Impala, and you could connect to 2.0. And in the next version, what we are going to come in this month, March, is that you will be able to connect to the latest version of Hive 1.12 as well, right? And I already defined a connection. I'm just going to select the connection which I'm going to use. Once you put the host name, port, and what is the username, password. At this case, we support both secured clusters and unsecured cluster. So secure cluster support is going to come in a couple of weeks in the March release, where if your cluster is being secured with username, password, or you have configured your cluster with Kerberos authentication, you could just use your Kerberos authentication to fetch the data. Right? Once you type in your credentials, you could just say connect. At this stage, Lumira is trying to connect to the underlying Hadoop and kind of list all your artifacts that you have in Hadoop, right? In terms of tables and all those things. In this case, I selected a particular table, and you kind of get all the columns that you have in that table in Hadoop, right? So at this stage, what you have in the screen, what you could do is you have different options. Either you could decide to sample the data or not sample the data. If you decide to sample the data, that you have an option to define what is the sampling size that you want to work on, right? It could be, in this case, I think I have some 20 million records here, right? So I want to sample for 0.05%, right? So, and we basically do a random sampling here. In future, we have plans to improve the sampling techniques as well, right? And here, now you do the random sampling, which kind of represents the populations. And if you have more memory, you could start increasing the sample size, which could be more representing the populations, right? So you could get up to 50 million cells to your Lumira desktop. In Lumira, we have something called in-memory database velocity engine, which has been bundled along with the Lumira. You need not install separately. It comes with Lumira. All the data what you pull is kind of pushed within this in-memory. In this case, whatever the sample I'm doing, it's going to be pushed to the in-memory, and you could start doing more highly interactive analysis with 50 million cells kind of data in your desktop, right? In this case, I've said 0.05% out of, I have some 20 million records and so on, right? So I just say create, and I'm going to retrieve some 10,000 rows, right? So you could just go to 100,000 as well. In this, just for the demo purpose, I've just used 10,000 here. So 0.05 is going to bring me 10,000 rows into the data which has been put into the in-memory records, right? So in this case, what you have is complete definitions of the dimensions and measures from the data will be shown here now, right? At this stage, what you could do, you could start building your visualizations and try to find insights. Before that, you could also go to prepare room. This is where you kind of prepare your data for analysis. So at this stage, what we do is we kind of highlight in terms of saying that you basically working on a sample, you're not working on the full data set. So here I've just used 9,000 records out of 20 million records, right? So and what you could do, like you could start pumping in, looking at the data, and you could start fixing any issues what you see in the data. For example, I'm looking at here, like you have a city, and you want to fix what do you call it? You want to fix some issues that you have in this data. I want to get rid of this double quotes in my data. So I could just do some data manipulations here. You can have a lot of data manipulations which you could be done on the data. In this case, I want to replace, right? So find and replace. I want to just find double quotes and replace with nothing, right? And I'll say apply. So it kind of applies on the complete city and cleanses the data. So all these transformations, what you make, it's kind of stored and replayed when you require. So here in this case, I'm looking at the date text where I want to extract the year out of the date, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to split this column based on an hyphen, right? So, and I'm going to say apply. This column is going to be splitted based on the delimiter hyphen based on the data what I have. So I have an year and all other stuff. In this case, I want to just rename the derived column to year, right, for my better understanding purpose. Right. So once you do the data manipulation, all these transformations, like whatever you have done, even what you could do is you could start adding the multiple data sources. Now I have added one first. You could just start adding another sources, start merging the data, and you have a very big workflows in terms of merging and in visualization, in terms of binding and all those lot of stuff. So I'm not getting into the details of those workflows. We could look at the other webinars what we have for you to understand what are the things that could be done in terms of joining the different tables and so on, right? So in this case, I have just done the data manipulation. All this data transformation is kind of stored, and whenever you refresh, whenever you schedule, and everything is going to be replaced, right? So any new records what you're going to come before you analyzing, it's going to be again cleansed with the data pre-processing applications what you have done, yeah, right? So and then you could go to visualizations, and with the sample you could start building in the data, right? So you could just say I'm looking at the year and I want to look at price for the different years, right? So in this case, I'm kind of getting a trend in terms of how was the price. Maybe I just change the chart, right? There are too many charts available in Lumira. We also have a capability to extend the chart and bring in the more chart extensions. You could go to the marketplace and start looking at what are the different charts we have, and you could bring it back to the Lumira for analysis. In this case, I just change it to the column chart. So I kind of get the details like there is a stuff changing it. So instead of looking at the price as sum, the better way of looking at it is an average. Is to I just switch to the average, and you start seeing the trend in terms of average, right? You could start looking at the line chart and so on. So in this case, I would like to see the data. This is the data which is about the property price in UK, and maybe I'm kindly interested only on London data. So, and then what I could do now is I could start applying a filter on the London data, right? On city, maybe I just go to city and say filter and say London data, right? Okay. Right. So once you apply the filter and it's applied throughout the document, and you could start looking at the results in the different property type and look at the trend for different property type as well, right? So at this stage, once you have done some analysis, like what you could do, you could start pushing your results to underneath back to Hadoop. Okay, and here you kind of have something like the data pre-processing what you have done in the prepare room. You could generate the Hive table for that, which you could be define a smart data access to HANA, and you could start accessing from HANA as well. In this case, what I want to do is I want to generate a Lumira document, and with the complete data set what I have underneath Hadoop, and I could say continue to that. So in this case, you need to just define the UC settings that you need to get it from your administrator from underneath Hadoop. What is the UC settings? We use UC as a scheduler, and you need to define the output format what you want to get the results in. Right. So here I want to get the results in Lumira Lums file, and I could say that I need UK London full analysis, right? And I could just say once I give the name, right, and I could just say go and generate for the full data set. At this time, what Lumira is doing is looking at all the data manipulation and visualizations, all the steps what you have created, and it is forming a script, and that script will be executed in Hadoop. At this stage, what it has generated a script, and it is sent to Hadoop usage job, and it has started scheduling within the Hadoop, right? So I'll not save this document. I'll just go back to the home page, and I'll just show you how you can monitor this Hadoop job, right? The stuff what I've scheduled now is you could just go and look at what are the stuff that is running. So whatever document we have created is now getting executed in Hadoop, right? So since I have a huge amount of records and it takes some 4-5 minutes to run in underneath Hadoop as a job batch process. Just to save time, what I have done is already created the document in before our meeting, and just opening the document. So once this Lumira document is created in Hadoop, you could just transfer back to Lumira easily from this home page, and then you could start looking at the results. So in this case, if you look at this, you are running the data in the complete you have run this data in the complete 20 million records, and you're looking at the results based on the executions, what is being generated in Hadoop, and you're looking at the results in Lumira. This way, you'll be able to connect to different sources of big data and start doing the sampling and execute on the full data set and find the full insights. Right? I want to introduce another area where you have in your environment, you have HANA and Hadoop, right? As I said, both are complementary. And HANA brings the capabilities of executing the results at very high speed. And you have that's a platform by itself where you'll be able to handle large amount of high value data and find insight at a very high speed. And other side, Hadoop is bringing up infinity storage for you. And in terms of processing, and it's relatively slow, and it more helps for the batch processing kind of stuff, right? And if you look at the way Hadoop has grown from Hadoop 1.0 to 2.0, if you look at in 1.0, you had only the MapReduce as the only way where you could process your data in Hadoop, right? In 2.0, there are a lot of other technologies have come in such a way that you have different approaches to process your data and fetch your data, which is in the underlying Hadoop, right? On those lines, if you look at, we have introduced something called SAP HANA VORA in Q4 last year. HANA VORA is an in-memory query engine which leverages the Hadoop Spark extension framework, and it's an implementation of the Spark, and you have a HANA in-memory engine running on each and every data node of your Hadoop, where it loads the data what is available in your data node and stores in the memory, where you could get the data results at very high speed. This way you could kind of get interactive analysis within the Hadoop environment, and without relying on a job process stuff, which I've showed as a previous example. And here you'll be able to connect to HANA VORA and do an enriched interactive analysis on Hadoop, right? If you have HANA and VORA and SAP HANA, right, you have an option in Lumira. In 1.29, you have two options. Like if you have for VORA, if you have HANA, you could directly connect to the HANA online to HANA data source, and you could define a smart data access to VORA, and then you could do an interactive analysis. The case where you do not have a HANA in your environment, what you could do, you could directly connect via Spark connector what we have to the VORA, and then you could run the SQL in Hadoop and fetch the data to Lumira. Here you need to be a little more careful in terms of amount of data what you are bringing in within the Lumira, right? So also there's other case where when you are executing something within the VORA and you want to integrate with the corporate data which is available in SAP HANA, you could just have a connection defined, and you can, from VORA scripts, you could connect to the HANA tables and bring in the data as well, right? And also like to introduce something which we are working on for the future innovations. We have not decided when this would be released, and this is something like where VORA in future versions of VORA will have the ability to define the complete analytical cube within the VORA, right? So you can think of defining an OLAP cube within VORA where you have dimensions, measures, and you have a hierarchies, everything defined in VORA, and with SAP Lumira you could be able to connect to VORA analytical cubes and do an online analysis. So what happens is in online connectivity, like once you connect to the VORA, you may not bring all the data back to the Lumira clients. What you could do is all the execution, Lumira just it's a UI and shows high-level data from VORA, and then you do as and when you start building the visualizations, everything kind of executes in VORA, and you get the final results in VORA, in Lumira. It's similar to the HANA online connectivity, what we have in Lumira now. Okay, and one more stuff which I want to touch upon is in terms of the different variety of challenges what Lumira, what big data brings in. Right. So if you look at the tables and the amount of data which is growing, right, it's not only growing in terms of number of rows, right, it also grows in number of attributes. The usually machine generated data kind of puts in lot of columns, and which tends to have a challenge for analytical tool to manage. If you look at our predictive analytical tools, we have a lot of smart ways and automated way of finding the key influencing attributes that needs to be used for analysis. Even in Lumira, we have those capabilities which will help you to understand which are the key influencing attributes that need to be used out of all maybe 300, 400, 500 attributes what you have, and it will kind of give you these are the top attributes that you can use it for analysis, and that would be like a very value addition for the users when he is thrown with a huge set of huge number of columns and rows, right? So also we see is that different structure of data is coming in terms of document structure, in terms of hierarchies, and in terms of different graph type of database, right? So it's you're kind of moving from the standard table and schema definition to most of unstructured way of doing it also. Even in the document data type, where each level you could have a different schema definitions, and it could more complicated on those lines, right? Also you have you store your data as you get it, right? So in terms of, for example, if you're storing an email, right, it's kind of semi-structured data, and within the email, the body text would be unstructured data where you can process it. Right? So that way, it's a challenge for analytical tools how to handle such difference in the data, right, in the different structures of data, and how to find insight, right. Just to give an insight about different type of database, how it is kind of adoption is growing. If you look at OLAP, if you look at the standard OLAP and OLTP database, relational database is kind of stagnant, right? It is kind of growing at the same strength. And when you look at the new generation databases of document database or graph database, it's kind of growing over here, right? So, and in this case, what you see, the Neo4j and MongoDB, this is kind of adoptions are going. So MongoDB is more of a document structured database where you have the data in the structured format in terms of JSON objects, nested, and so on, right? So it's another challenge for the challenge for analytical tools how to find insights from these kind of data, right? When you really look at the Neo4j graph kind of databases where you have nodes, joins, and relations, and so you have to traverse through this and kind of find the insights. So how does Lumira handles, like in terms of finding the insight from the new generation, new type of schema, right? So end of the day, you have to flatten the data, right? So, but flattening the data is not something that you need to do at the beginning. That is something that needs to be at the end goal, right? So the UI and usability within the Lumira should be in terms of connecting to these data sources and kind of playing with that data and interact with the data, find the insights to it and add those attributes and then flatten the data. This is the kind of approach what Lumira takes. We have a data access extension prototype which is available in store.sap.com, which you could use it and start finding, connect to your MongoDB and play with the document structure data and try to fetch the data, right? You could go to store.sap.com and you could search for SAP Lumira data extensions for MongoDB, and you will get the link where it's free for you to try and just download it, and you could install it with SAP Lumira with the extension manager, and you could play with your data actual extension. There's a video also there in this site where I would recommend you to look at the demo and play with the one. And also look at in terms of Neo4j, maybe I'll quickly show a demo here. I have an install Neo4j, another prototype extensions, right? So I have a data set which kind of gives more information about the different recipes available in the book, right? It's a little bit huge database, right? I just click here, and at this stage we are not flattening the data, right? We are building a UI which kind of helping the users to find insights within the traverse through the schema which is available. So in this case, I have ingredients, cuisine, recipes, and all those informations where it's represented as a node and joins, right? The edges. So in this case, I'm looking at, for example, the recipe. I could get into the node level details of the recipes and start looking in more details. For example, here I'm looking at this node, this is American recipe, and I could also get into this node. I mean, this is also an American, and okay, so maybe I'll just filter this, and I'm interested in American recipe, and then you could start coming back to the nodes and start seeing that, okay, my objective is to figure out for American recipes what are the ingredients that is used, right? And I just add to my table, and also have an options here, like you could look at different in degree, out degree edges that's going around for the ingredients. Maybe I'm interested in out degree edges, and in terms of basically it gives me all the ingredients that's kind of out degree to ingredients, right? So, and then what you do once you traverse here and try to add whatever information you need, and this is a stage where the data is getting flattened, and you kind of transfer to the analytical tools, like in this case Lumira, right? And here what you could do is you could start building the visualizations, like I'm looking at the name of the ingredients and looking at the out degree edges what I have, right? And if I'm interested to look at what are the top 10 ingredients that is used in this recipe, I kind of get all this information which is being used in this recipes, right? This may be we bring in the capabilities of understanding the different structure of the data in Lumira, and you'll be able to find insights during the extension. Also, to quickly touch upon the roadmaps which we have plans in our mind. So as you know, the roadmap things might change. This is just to give you an insight like what we are thinking, and we'll be start supporting more authentications in Lumira 1.30, which will be released in a couple of weeks, and at least by end of this month, and that will be supporting the Kerberos authentication for Impala and Smart. And in terms of data authorization, we had planned to support Apache Sentry, and in for online analysis, as I told in the earlier slide, you could connect to the HANA VORA and start doing the analysis for stuff, right? And we also have plans to support a variety of the data like MongoDB and Neo4j and those items. And bring in the data wrangling capabilities to different sources of data. So in future, we will also work on the velocity of the data, mainly in terms of streaming sources, and you'll be able to connect to the streaming source and start analyzing the data and so on, right? And we'll also support another stores like instead of HDFS, we also support like CouchDB and Kudu and HBase kind of stuff.
Is this for a non-accelerated version of Lumira? And I think that you mentioned already that this was your original demo was with the Lumira with the Velocity engine, which is actually built into Lumira.
Right.
So could you speak on that, please?
Yes. So any Lumira version, you need not install some external database along with that. We have something called Velocity engine that comes by default with Lumira. Right, that's getting installed along with the Lumira, and whatever the data we kind of pull into Lumira will be pumped inside to Velocity, and then you kind of interact and all the query that's happening into the in-memory Velocity engine, by which you could get the very execution. I mean, you could get the results executed fast, and you could start interacting with the visualization and do it very fast.
Question from Kumar about the Simba driver that you demonstrated, and that is a paid driver, if you can confirm, which you can get from the marketplace or SAP store. Is that correct?
Right. So, okay. Right. There are a few extensions that is being built by our partners. So one is Simba has built an extension to MongoDB. So whatever I have kind of talking here and showed about stored at SOP.com is a prototype, but Simba has productized it and it's available in the marketplace. So what you could do is you could just go to Lumira and you could just go to extensions and go to extension marketplace, and this is the place where you could find all the extensions which has been okay, and just open the browser here. Okay, and you have all the extensions which is built by our partner, right? In this case, you could so okay, I think I need to search. Okay, see, Simba has built in the MongoDB drivers here, which connectors here, which you could connect. We could download it, purchase it, and use it along with Lumira as well, right? So what I've showed is a prototype, and it's Simba also provided the MongoDB connector here.
Yeah, we do have a number of free visualization and data access extensions for Lumira, and the easiest way to find those is to go into your browser and do a search on SCN Lumira extensions, and you'll get the free ones coming up. And question from John: what data sources, I assume big data sources, other than HANA and Hadoop are available?
So you could look at different drivers what we have. If you look at what the items what we have, I've installed the drivers. It's showing up in the green, which is stuff which I've not installed. It's showing in the red. For Amazon, I have an Amazon Redshift that is on big data, and Amazon EMR, Hadoop Hive, and Cloudera Impala, and also you have other data sources, HP NeoView, Vertica, 6.1 and so on, right?
So most of these delivered with the product, or how many are partners?
Right, these are all delivered with the product.
Question from Vishal: can we install the Neo4j plugin tool in Lumira 1.29?
Yes, this MongoDB is something that you could find, and Neo4j we have not kept it in the store. In future we will do it, and at this time it's just a prototype. Just I want to show you concept of how do we interact and do it, what we are thinking on those lines. So MongoDB is something that you could go and do it today. Yeah.
Can we schedule a data refresh from the team server?
Right.
It's actually
right. It's a good question. Like today we use Uzi scheduler, which is running in the Hadoop, and we manage that from Lumira desktop homepage, right? So in future we will be integrating that with enterprise platform. this one, what do you call, scheduler, and even team server scheduler. So today you have to monitor only with Lumira desktop, and execution happens in Woozy underneath. And there is no interaction, there is no link between platform schedule. This is something will be taken care later.